Another massacre in America, this time in Sutherland, Texas, where a man walked into a church. He killed 26 people, injured dozens of others, including a pregnant woman, including the pastor's daughter and a child as, 5 years old. The suspect, 26-year-old Devin Patrick Kelley, armed with an assault rifle, blew away folks as they were simply worshiping the Lord.
Suspect was seen at a Valero gas station in Sutherland Springs, Texas. He was dressed in all black. That suspect crossed the street to the church, exited his vehicle, and began firing at the church. That suspect then moved to the right side of the church and continued to fire. That suspect entered the church and continued to fire. As he exited the church, a local resident grabbed his rifle and engaged that suspect. The suspect dropped his rifle, which was a Ruger AR assault type rifle, and fled from the church. Our local citizen pursued the suspect at that time. He ran off the roadway and crashed out and was found deceased in his vehicle. At this time, we don't know if it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or if he was shot by our local resident.
A sad state of affairs there. Again, this is a man who was previously, of course, accused of domestic violence, also served in the military. This man here was interesting. If we look at the reaction, you have Republicans who are calling for prayers, Donald Trump calling for prayers, and then saying, how could this happen? Well, we've seen it happen. In fact, in the largest mass shootings in American history, most of them have taken place over the last decade, including there in Texas. Let's not forget the folks who were killed in Las Vegas as well. This is Donald Trump overseas commenting on the mass shooting.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and families of today's horrible and murderous attack. This act of evil occurred as the victims and their families were in their place of sacred worship. We cannot put into words the pain and grief we all feel, and we cannot begin to imagine the suffering of those who lost the ones they so dearly loved.
Now, you notice he didn't call it a terrorist attack. That's what it was. Joining us now, NBC correspondent Jay Gray. Actually, we'll have him just shortly. Again, Trump didn't call that a terrorist attack. Now, after, of course, what took place in New York, when 8 people were killed, he immediately talked about Muslim extremists. But what about white male extremists in America who are shooting folks up in these mass shootings? It's amazing how we don't want to call domestic terrorism domestic terrorism. All right, let's go to Texas in just a second here. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray, he is on the ground there where folks are simply shocked and stunned of what is taking place. Jay?
Hey, Roland, yeah, and you're absolutely right. This entire community overwhelmed by what's happened here. And like so many across the country, frankly, can't get their head around what's happened in their small community. Let's update where the investigation is overnight. We now know that police have searched not only the suspect's car, but his home as well. They're trying to figure out any digital footprint that he may have, any activity online, and that's something they're looking very closely at. But to this point, they haven't said anything publicly anyway about a possible motive in the attack. We know that the suspect here, Devin Patrick Kelley, 26 years old, was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force in 2012 after being convicted of assaulting his then wife and child, spent 12 months behind bars. But they still haven't found any link between Kelley and the church that's just behind me here, the church where 26 people were killed and close to 20 injured after he, according to police, burst through the front doors and opened fire. Roland.
Jay, what also jumps out is this reaction to this shooting. First of all, this is a very small town, and based upon previous reports, everybody there knew everyone who was shot and killed. Was there only one person? Because one witness said they got a call. One person said they got a call, and they said there were 2 individuals who they said came to the church.
Yeah, at this point, police are telling us there was only one shooter involved here, and they're very confident about that. There was some questions early, but it may have been because of the number of shots fired that someone thought there may have been another shooter involved. Also, there have been reports that he reloaded while he was inside that sanctuary, and so a pause in the shooting, and then the shooting began again. So again, that may have led to some of the confusion there. Overnight, a vigil was held, and so many gathered, family members and friends, all saying that they were drawn there because they needed to be together, that was the one thing that may help them start to work through some of this. But again, a lot of people here, Roland, as you would expect, still very much in shock and wondering how and why it could happen in a place where there's less than 500 people. And as you said, everybody either knows someone who was involved or has a friend or family member who knows someone.
And again, for folks who don't know, this is just outside of San Antonio, Texas. Jay Gray, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Let's go to our panel here. Eugene Craig, Republican strategist and CEO of the Eugene Craig Organization. Also, Tiffany Cross, managing editor and curator and publisher of The Beat, as well as Joe Payne, Democratic strategist with the Corvus MSL Group. What is consistent here is that this keeps happening in America, but it does not happen in other countries.
You're right. I mean, statistically, it does keep happening in America. In reality, it does keep happening in America. You know, we have a people issue in America. We have a culture issue in America. We have an issue with white male extremists. We have an issue with white male terrorists invoking violence on mass groups of people. And I think, you know, we as a country, we as a culture need to figure out a solution to that.
But here's what I keep trying to explain to people. I love it when Republicans or the Trump administration loves talking about Chicago, 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 as if America's violent gun culture somehow is different in Chicago than it is in these mass shootings. This is a nation that is in love with guns. It is embedded in the DNA of America. And so at some point, folks might want to wake up and say, yeah, this is who we are, a violent nation.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, you're right, we have a people issue. We have a gun issue. This country is addicted to guns. And, you know, I'm reminded of the Gospel of James 2:20, faith without works. We can't keep doing this thoughts and prayers nonsense. Like, yeah, we do extend our thoughts and prayers. We know that everyone on this stage and everyone in America feels the same way, but that means absolutely nothing if we don't actually stand up and act on what is right and do something about guns. 80% of gun owners want background checks. Why can't we come together and do that? A month after Las Vegas, still nothing on bump stocks. You know, and action is complicity at this point.
And I think to your point, this is actually a bipartisan issue. There are people on both sides of the divide who want to see gun control. You have Republican Congressman Carlos Corbelo out of Florida, who's really led the effort to control bump stocks. His party, unfortunately, has not come along with him. And you see, again, I think within 12 hours or so after the attack in New York, the terrorist attack in New York, the president came out immediately on his favorite medium in Twitter and had a conference talking about how he wanted to get rid of the diversity lottery program, or the diversary lottery program, as he called it. And yet here we are again today with another mass shooting, and he's not ready to institute policy. And you can call it mental health issues, but it's bigger than that.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.